The Dr. Ray Podcast is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio. Here's today's monologue with Dr. Ray Guarendi.
I remember coming across a study. Probably there are many like this, because the area is so broad, on the durability of personality. Now, personality in and of itself is a very, very broad thing. It's enormously complex. We try to narrow it down by speaking in traits, or we try to do things like, well, he's choleric, or he is sanguine. I don't like any of those. They are way too simplistic. However, one thing that is notable, let's say that an individual has a Christian conversion. Now, what is usually the first thing to change? The moral direction of their life. They turn from a lot of the moral wrongdoing, the sins that was going on. It's the first thing. Then they try to move toward living as Christ would have them live, a little more virtuous, charitable existence. But the last thing to really change is personality. Now, again, I'm going to qualify this by saying when I say personality, I'm deliberately broadening the term because there's really no way I can kind of narrow it down. Let's say someone is a very talkative individual. And they're so talkative that they can be rude. They're not aware that they dominate a conversation. And 16 years ago, they converted to Christianity. And people knew them before their conversion, and people now know them. But they're still very, very talkative. And they seem to really be unaware of how off-putting that can be in certain circumstances. Just dominate a conversation. That part of their personality is sluggish to change. It resists changing. Or let's just say that someone, by the way they're wired, their personality, they're kind of shy, they're kind of socially awkward, uncomfortable around people. They don't say much. And they've had a very deep Christian conversion, and over the years they've become much more charitable in their giving, or they've become more devotional in their practices, maybe easier going regarding perceived offenses. But that aspect of their personality that's uncomfortable around people is still kind of there. It's really the last thing to change. Many folks will say this. You know, he became a Christian, but he doesn't seem all that much different. It depends upon what you mean by all that much different. He's no longer into pornography. He's stopped that. And he is easier to live with for his wife. And he's a better daddy. But maybe he's still kind of a braggart. You know, he's still kind of a dude that wants to impress people. So that aspect of his personality, slow to change. And I guess my caution here is to say, recognize that in people before you say, well, I don't see how their Christianity's done a whole lot of difference for their personality. Well, in many respects, certain aspects of the way we are wired into us. It's our temperament. Shyness is generally not something you learn. It's something that's wired into your personality. You can overcome it to some degree, but it's not as easy. So as a result, you can be a very deeply committed Christian, but there are just aspects of your personality that will be the last thing, if ever, to change. That's why some of the saints will talk about having tempers or being abrasive. Well, they were saints, but that aspect of their personality was something that they they struggled with for the rest of their earthly life.
More of Dr. Ray's Manologues can be found on his website, drray.com. Manologues, as well as full-length programs of The Doctor Is In, can be heard at AveMariaRadio.net and EWTN.com/radio.